everyone. Welcome to the podcast Solution for People's Management. Today, I have Audrey Rumsby. She's the CEO of Edith. So our topic today is authentic leadership, presence, and how you show up. With each podcast, I'm going to bring an industry leader to talk about authentic leadership, and I feel very privileged and lucky to have Audrey here in the studio with me today. Hello, Audrey. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm so happy to be here chatting with you. It was great meeting you a couple months back, so this is a really fun way to continue the conversation.
And I was so fascinated when I met you, especially with the Edith and the whole concept. I thought it was very innovative, and I'm glad you accepted my invitation.
Yeah, of course, I'm happy to.
So, can you start just learning more about you, a little bit about your background? I know based on the research I have done, you've been in theater, and now you're a CEO of Edith. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's been a very interesting one. I think the greatest thing about life is that you don't have any idea what it has in mind for you, right? So I think the surprise is that we end up in places that we never would have imagined, and that's the excitement of it. So yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about how I got here. Early on in my childhood, I was a part of a theater company that my parents run, and they still do to this day. And I come from a family of performers, musicians, actors, etc. And so I grew up in the theater. So from a very, very young age, I was acting and also then started doing choreography. I started helping with costume design and set design and all of these things and producing as well. So throughout my life, kind of as a very young child into my teen years and then becoming an adult, I was just immersed in this process of how do we tell a story? How do we manage telling that story from the company oversight standpoint? This was all the stuff I got involved into as a kid, the production element of things. But the most important thing about it for us as a company and for me as a kid growing up was how do we take an individual and help them be the absolute greatest version of themselves on stage? And that we saw that process of really investing in individual people, training them, helping them to gain their confidence, their physical presence, their understanding of who they were. It went way beyond that stage and that performance run, way beyond that. And that passion took me into film directing, where I still to this day, I absolutely love coaching actors. I love directing actors, helping people to understand and who they are and how to be that person to their fullest extent. So that's kind of where my career started, was in the theater very early on. And then I became a professional director and producer. And the interesting thing is throughout that journey, one thing that's very commonly known is in the theater and in film, it's quite difficult to make a living. It's not the easiest thing in the world. So I would find myself with pockets of time during the day when I would have productions going on. I be like, I think I could do something else during the day to help make a little bit more money. So at this point, let's see, I was about 19 years old when I started having those thoughts of, I think I need to be bringing in some more dough here to support my creative passion. So I started looking around at various designer boutiques in London, which is where I was living at the time and working. And one day I stumbled into one that was beautiful in Knightsbridge. I don't know if you're familiar with the area, but it's just gorgeous. It was a few doors down from the very famous Harrods department store.
Mhm.
And I walked into this boutique and I just started putting things together just for fun. I would create outfits. And for me, it was the same as designing a costume, no different than that. And the manager walked up to me and she goes, "You know what? That looks amazing. I would never have thought to put those things together. You want a job?" And it was literally that simple. It just happened that way. Uh, and I said, "Yeah, you know what? Actually, yeah, I do. I do want a job. Let's do it." And she had me come back. I'm not kidding. The next day, and that's when I started. So this kind of natural need, to just make a little bit more money, and also my passion for costume design and just creating great looks for people fed naturally into fashion. So I worked in fashion alongside working in theater and film for a number of years, about a decade, actually. And that led me to Nordstrom. I worked as a top personal stylist for Nordstrom for many years. Loved it there, absolutely loved it. And I worked for Stitch Fix for a short period of time. I'll be honest with you, I did not love working at Stitch Fix, but that's okay. No hard feelings there. But uh, yeah, it was not the experience I wanted to have. So I stayed with places like Nordstrom, and then I ended up starting my own personal styling business. And that is what then led naturally into this company now that I'm running and CEO of, called Edith.
And can you tell us a little bit about Edith and its purpose and its mission and how it's supposed to help, humanity and help people grow in their careers and in leadership?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the why behind the company is the same why that I've had in my life. It's to help people be the greatest versions of themselves, is to help people live up to their own potential. That's my why. But what the company really does, first I'll tell you about the name. Edith is named after Edith Head. Edith Head was one of the greatest costume designers ever to have lived. And she was famous for the way that she made people feel, less so than the way she made them look. I mean, she made them look spectacular, don't get me wrong, but it was more about the way that she transformed the way that they felt in their own bodies. So that's where the name Edith comes from for our company. But what we do is we are a very high touch personal styling platform. And what that means is that we create completely personalized online stores for both individuals and for corporate partners. For individuals, we do interfacing just like we are right now. You get to actually meet and work with a world-class stylist who's trained to understand your goals in your life and how to help you achieve those goals with the right wardrobe. At that point, you receive a completely personalized online store, which has been designed completely for you. So every item in it, every outfit has been chosen just for you, and you can shop from there and purchase what you want. Um, and then on the corporate side, and this is where things are getting really exciting these days for us, is we've now started designing and curating dress codes for major corporate partners so that, as we all kind of know now, in the wake of COVID-19, dress code is a really sticky subject for many in HR and in management. It's really difficult for employees to understand clearly what's being expected of them in the dress code realm, and how to dress for the jobs they want. I think that's crucial. I think in order to move up in the workplace, many of us have to present ourselves as the person that's worthy of that job, of where we want to go. And when there are no guidelines being set, no real examples being set for you in the workforce, that's a huge guessing game. We don't really know what we're supposed to do or what's expected of us. So what Edith does now is we create a complete comprehensive solution for businesses to offer those guidelines through our completely personalized online stores for their teams.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I know when I met you a couple months ago, I was picking your brain about like what are your main corporate clients and what where does Edith fit best?
Yeah. You mean kind of which clients we enjoy working with or who we're
Yes,
working with now?
and yeah, and if somebody is listening to this, another CEO, another business owner, and they're thinking, hey, this is a great idea, where does Edith fit in for them basically?
Yeah. Okay. So to give you an example of the teams that we're working with right now, I won't give specific names away
Yeah,
because that's a breach of their privacy. But
yeah,
currently, we work with companies that are very, very small and those that are very, very large. So if you're thinking about scale, or this sounds like it applies to only a large scale business, that's
mhm,
not true. We can work
okay,
with teams of any size. So at the moment, we have teams in healthcare that are, some of them very small, teams of 15, teams of 40. And for them, we end up talking to their management. This is a little bit about the process. We talk to management and HR. They tell us what the guidelines are, what their vision is for that dress code. And crucially, what we do that's different from what anyone else does out there is we poll and we really get to know the employees. We understand what they actually want from their dress code and what they would be comfortable in on a day-to-day basis. And then we create that completely personalized store for the employees and management to shop from. So that works for those smaller scale companies and also for larger scale companies. There's one that I just met with today where they're nationwide. They have 20,000 employees and their needs are dramatically different depending on where their teams are located, right? So in that case, what we do is it's a little bit more in depth of a process, but we then create up completely individual stores depending on where their teams are located. So if I'm in Detroit, I'm going to shop from the Detroit store that's specifically labeled for me and my team and my role. And it can get broken down as granular as management want it to be. It's really cool. It's quite personalized and bespoke.
I would say, like, if you are like in the East Coast, given the weather condition, you would definitely dress differently, whether
Yeah.
versus you're here in the West Coast,
Exactly.
California. And I love the fact that you go and speak to people individually because I know fashion can be a very sensitive subject.
Yeah.
And so, have you or your team faced any hurdles when having those difficult? Because part of leadership, I know, is having those difficult conversations. Be it fashion, be it performance reviews, be it giving feedback. Have you? How do you handle those conversations? I know that this is a sensitive topic to many people.
Yeah. So I'm trying to understand your question a little clearer. So a hurdle, for example, I can tell you about a hurdle that I've helped guide another business owner through
Yeah,
recently with their
that's
team.
great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So one client we'd been speaking to, she had a very, very clear vision for what she wanted her team to look like and the type of dress she wanted them in. And there was a disconnect that I could see forming there between what she had described as her vision versus what her employees were actually going to need and function well in on a day-to-day basis. And I think this is reflective. You may have heard about this happening on a really large scale for Starbucks right now. This was just a couple months ago where Starbucks, they initiated an entire new dress code, didn't talk to their teams about it. They just rolled it out. And it was a huge problem. I mean, massive. They've had people quit over it. They're having a ton of turnover costs. So it's really interesting when you don't pay attention to what your employees actually need. You're setting yourself up for a turnover, right? Which is extremely expensive. And then following that, it's kind of an employee confusion and distrust. They don't know, like, well, if they're telling us to wear this stuff, do they know us at all? Do they understand our job? Why are they requiring that? So dress code is a fraught topic, and when not handled correctly, it's incredibly expensive
Yeah.
and damaging to morale and brand and cohesion. So, anyway, to kind of get back to how we help this manager, I mean, she really benefited from us kind of telling her, look, your team is telling us something different. This is not exactly what they want. And here are a bunch of reasons why what you're telling them is not actually a good idea for them. And for her, she's like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. Because I would never have gone in and asked them all of those little things. So for us, I think that's really important, kind of guiding that bridge of communication.
Yeah, that's significantly important because, like you said, it's trust, is really understanding people's need. And thank goodness for this company, you were there and they weren't in the Starbucks situation. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
I want to go back a little bit to your childhood. You mentioned from childhood you were kind of helping to design set, working with actors, actresses. Um, how do you think that helped you in terms of leadership and developing leadership skills from early on? Did that make an impact on how you approach people, how you communicate with them?
Yeah, I think, the number one thing that I learned very, very young, and when I say young, I mean I was about 10 when
Mm.
I first started to figure this out, is that every meaningful thing that would move us forward as a theater company at that point was based entirely on trust and a relationship. That was it. You could have a great idea, you could have a great vision, but if you didn't have trust and relationships to build off of, you had nothing. So to me, that was one of the most crucial lessons early on, was that ideas are great, but people are what move everything forward. It's the individuals that you get to work with and building that trust, because when you have that trust, when you show up and give as much as you possibly can on a day-to-day basis to everyone around you, they will show up for you big time. And I think that was one of the things that became so rewarding for me later on as I became a professional in the industry in my late teens, early 20s, is that the people that I had helped when I was a kid continued to show up for me. 10 years later, they showed up for me. They were there to say, Audrey, what do you need? Let's do it. And that to me, I think is the ideal, that's an ideal form of leadership, to say, I've given so much already. Now that I get to have this wonderful reward of having people show up to execute on my vision now. And so to me, I think in many cases we make leadership this sort of dictatorial role where we're just here to have a vision and have an idea and then tell a bunch of people what to do. And to me, it's the absolute opposite of that. It's the opposite. Uh, it's more about, I think, I'll quote what an actor once said who worked with me a few years ago. He told me, and this was in a live interview, we had this big Q&A session in front of an audience, and he told the audience that working with me was like being completely mined for his talent. Like he said, Audrey, if Audrey's working with you, you're not going to escape without having everything you can do being shown off to the world. You're going to be showcased to your fullest extent. And that's why he loved working with me. And I think that's what I love to do, really, is get to know people, understand what makes them tick, understand those little underlying talents and gifts that they have, and show it all off. And when you do that for someone, they feel great, they feel confident, they feel seen, they feel appreciated, and they will follow you. And that's a bit of a long answer to your question, but, but that's what it's come to mean for me.
Great. You kind of touch upon it. What about, we have a lot of performative leadership, especially like with all these seminars of, how you're supposed to be as a leader. But you touch about authentic leadership, where really it comes about helping people.
Yeah.
How have you seen the benefit of that? I mean, you mentioned it in the theater work. Now with Edith, where do you see those? And and where can it be? Where have you seen it in your experience where it might have been a downfall, where you felt, oh, I should have just pushed, I had a vision and, I just should have pushed single-handedly forward.
Yeah, I think, you're touching on something that's been a huge challenge for me. I'll be honest with you. When it works, what I'm talking about, this giving, the giving of myself and trying to create opportunity really for others, when it's all about that and not about necessarily my own vision, I do, and I can end up being too nice sometimes. This is something that can happen. And I think it's a really interesting balance that, I'll be honest, I'm learning every day right now, where the balance is between how much to give and how much to support other visions and the people around me, and how much to lift up versus how much of my own vision I need to not just implement, but, and I don't want to say force either, but it's that clear decision making, that to take ownership, complete ownership of what's going on, and when I receive pushback. Because I think perhaps my greatest weakness is in allowing too much input from others to impact what I'm doing. And I think that can be the sticky spot, because on the one hand, when you are uplifting and pulling talent out of the people that you're working with, that can be a massive, massive benefit. But if you go a little too far with that, it can also be challenging. And sometimes you can have to rewind it back a little bit and say, okay, no, I'm taking back, taking the reins back. But I think if you can find the sweet spot, that's where it's at. Yeah.
That's fantastic because balance is everything. And with
Yeah.
that said, I mean, how do you? I mean, I can imagine like with Edith and theater work, especially in theater, there can be a lot of rejections, a lot of no's.
Hmm.
Um, can you tell us, especially for us women, because rejection is hard for everyone? How have you, if you ever face a no, how have you dealt with it, and how have you found a way around it? I know because with acting it or being an actress, it can be hard. But how do you deal with that, especially in your line of work, or either as a
Yeah.
CEO or as an actress?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question. And I'm very grateful now that I get to coach a lot of young actors and now some young business people too, dealing with rejection. So it's something I deal with on a regular basis. And I think it's the hardest thing in the world for people, especially as it's so challenging, because I can compare the two. As an actor, you have this vision for who you are, what you're going to be, and where you're going. And the simple rate of rejection, I think, is what is so difficult. It's the fact that you can go to 10 things and you can get a no for every single one. And I think the really amazing thing about rejection is that I think it's the thing that it's the decider in a way of whether or not you are going to succeed in any industry, if you can cope with rejection or not. For those of us who cannot cope with rejection, that's kind of it. Then this is not the place for you, right? As an actor, that's just the truth. And I think if because that's part of how you build that muscle. It's through the building of tension. It's through understanding, okay, this isn't my team that I'm going to be on, and that's okay. Maybe this is my team. If it's not my team, that's fine too. But I think what that leads people to do, and this is what happened for me as an actor early on, and as a director too, you get a lot of rejections there as well. And this also, it applies to Edith too in the sales process here. We can think of it one of two ways. We can think, okay, so they're not picking me. For everyone that's not picking me, there's going to be someone else out there who would. We can look at it that way and use that as a resilience and muscle builder. Or, this is my preferred way, is to say, okay, well, if they're not going to pick me for their team, then I'm going to simply make my own team so that I can pick them if I choose to or not. And I think it's a subtle but very powerful shift in mindset when you decide, I'm not here to be chosen by someone else. I am here to make the choosing. I am here to do the choosing. And I'm here to create opportunity for someone else. And if they don't want to take the opportunity I'm offering them, then that's fine. And that shift in mindset, it's a difference between giving of power and taking power back. I hope this is making sense. It's a little complicated and difficult to do.
It's very profound what you're saying.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. I think it's one of the most difficult moments, I think, to kind of bring it back to young actors. I coach a lot of young actors coming out of drama schools, and man, is it hard when they have that realization sometimes that, maybe I'm not going to get picked for the team that I want to be on. And they then have to choose, am I going to give up, or am I going to start my own team? And I've seen it happen before where, I mean, brilliant young talents who have just gotten rejected over and over again. You wonder, why are they getting rejected? They're just brilliant, these people. And it's that turning point where they say, I'm not going to be crushed. I'm not going to be said, I don't belong here. I'm going to create a place where I do belong. I'm going to create my own thing, my own work, my own projects, etc. And I think that's where you see true magic really come to life. It's in so many creators who just go off and decide to make their own team.
What it sounds to me is like the inner leadership. that you
Hmm.
kind of develop to not just to take your chair to the table, but like create the whole table yourself,
Yeah.
and use your, see where your talents can be best applied, and uplifting others.
Yeah, exactly.
With Edith and with your own personal life, what are the top advice you give to your coachees, and what keeps you going with Edith on every single day? I know it's like it should be a lot of challenges, a lot of moving parts, but what keeps you going?
Yeah. Okay. Well, so those were, I think, two different questions,
Yeah,
sort of. I can combine them actually. I think, to answer the first one that you mentioned, what's kind of the top things that I would say to usually to my mentees, to the
yeah,
to the people I coach, that's usually it always hinges around two specific little acronyms, and I find this to be really helpful for them. One is USP, your unique selling point, and I'll get into that. USP, what that really means when we say focus on USP, that means let all of the other things go. Let everything go all the expectations you put on yourself, all the expectations or things you think you're supposed to be trying to be, and focus on the one thing that makes you really spectacular. What is the nugget that you have that is a unique gift, a unique talent that makes you feel like you're just in total free flow when you're doing that thing? Whatever that thing is, lean into it 100,000%. And often when we take all the clutter away and just devote that focus, it often lends itself to a tremendous amount of clarity for that actor, for that director, musician, whoever it is. Because I think the world gives us so much clutter. We have a ton of information coming at us and expectations of who we should be trying to be. But I don't care about any of that. I actually don't care about what the fashion world tells you to do either. This all applies to Edith too. It's not about trend, it's not about style, it's not about expectations. It's what you are. It's what's your USP and how are you going to show that at 1,000%. That's what it's about for performers and for creatives. It's what it's about when we're dressing people too. So that's the number one piece of advice. The other thing too that I always try to tell people as well, particularly in the arts, is to focus on the different types of ROI that they bring to the world, the different forms of value that their work is going to offer. And
and
when they start
for
focusing on that,
ROI, you mean return on investment?
yeah, return on investment. I
Mhm.
think it's the term that we associate only, for the most part, only with financial gain and benefit. But when you tell people in the arts that there are different types of ROI, there are different things that you have to offer. In other words, if you're going to make a movie and you don't think that movie's not realistically going to make a return on investment cash wise, that's okay. It may make a return on investment for someone else's soul. It may tell a story that's historically so important that it doesn't matter whether it makes money right now. That kind of thing. It forces them to think outside of purely other people's expectation and financial confinement. And when we can let those two things go, we can get really creative. Um, let's see. The other question you started to ask me was how we get through the hurdles each day. Yeah.
Or you make a goal. How do you, I said, okay, you reach certain revenue, or you reach certain number of client. What keeps you going in, like, setting the next steps, or
Yeah.
when you push, when you face back, I mean push back, you'll say, oh, maybe how do you deal with that, and how do you keep on continuing? Both ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a great question, and it's certainly a struggle that arises for me. Certainly on a weekly basis. It's challenging to know when you have pushback or when you're getting rejections that you wish you hadn't had, things like that. Just kind of how to see past that and keep moving. I think one of the great things for me is, again, kind of in the same vein, revisiting the USP, revisiting the unique selling points of what we're doing and why it matters so much and who it's for. And when I get those sort of doubts or challenges coming up, one of the things I love to do is I pick up the phone and I call either a prospective client who I know is really excited and the timing isn't quite there yet, but we're on the right path, all of that, all of those things. And I call that person and we'll talk. And it's a massive boost that you get from knowing that you're already providing value to someone who really needs what you're doing. Um, the other thing, so hearing directly from customers, in other words, revisiting feedback from people who have already had a great experience with what we've done. That kind of reassurance is really helpful. But also, I have people in my life who I would consider to be cheerleaders for me. And whenever you're having a difficult time, whenever it feels tough, because in every business that anyone runs, there are these moments, right, where you're going to have a lot of challenge and muster some grit. So I'll pick up the phone and I'll call those people. I'll say, hey, can you walk me through a difficult situation? And they will be there for me 100% of the time and help me through it. Yeah.
That's wonderful having those support system and those group of people in your life. That's always really helpful. That kind of leaded to my next question is I know a lot of people are doing a lot of things at the same time, especially in the really busy culture of Bay Area. Can
Mhm.
you tell our viewers how do you A, what do you like to do for fun when you're not working? And B, how do you balance work-life balance? What is your strategy for that?
Yeah. I love that question. And if anyone else is an expert on that, please tell me how you do it because it's really hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so true. The Bay Area is a crazy, crazy place to be. It's so fast paced. Um, and that's a wonderful thing, but at the same time, it can be really hard to strike that balance. So I'm also a mom. I have he's 21 months old now. He's going to be turning 2. And yeah, he's my first child. So we have a small family. I've got a husband, a son, and yeah, and uh, and we've got a little dog too. And so it can be really, I think after becoming a mom, that was when the huge wake up call came really for just how important the work life balance was going to be for me. Because I used to be just the worst culprit in this. Before having my son, I would be up working until 3 o'clock in the morning, easily. And then I'd sleep for maybe 4 hours and then I'd be back at it again at 7 in the morning. And it was just, there was no balance there whatsoever. But I think the crucial thing that I am now having to remind myself of over and over again is that at this stage in life, where we have not just a business depending on us, but we have a family too, and yourself. So there's kind of 3 components that I think of. There's myself, my vessel, the human form that I have to take care of. There's my family, and there's my business. There's three arms really, each of which has to be cared for equally. I can't let one take too much weight because once that does, the importance of the other two will fall to the wayside, and I can't let that happen. So, one of the most valuable pieces of advice I was given quite recently is to remember that I am a crucial part of my business. If I am if I'm not in good shape, if I'm dwindling or too tired or uh, just falling apart on the inside, whether that's emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, any of these things, if I'm not nourished, then that's going to come through and it will show in the business. It absolutely will. And I think we can often think, I'm sacrificing myself for the business. I'm not sleeping well or I'm not eating enough right now because I'm putting too much or putting more emphasis on the business. And we can think of that as a good thing, but it is not. Because whether we know it or not, whether we can see it, not taking care of ourselves will have a detrimental impact on the business too and on our families. So I think the way to do this effectively for really busy people is to schedule everything, is to try to put the time on the calendar where it says, you know what, in a month from now, I am going to go do this. I'm going to have a massage or I'm going to do this thing with my family. And So my husband and I, we love booking different little trips that are often very, very short, maybe just a weekend. We'll go to the wine country, we'll bring our son with us, or we'll go to Disneyland for a one day, that kind of thing, where it's just really short little things that we can do that aren't too expensive or take up too much time, but they remind us this is really important. These little things that we're doing together. But yeah, if you don't schedule it, it won't really happen. I think that's the crucial truth.
Yeah, that's so important. And what I hear you're saying is more about quality versus quantity,
Yeah.
and just a realization, knowing that for that business or that family to operate, it's like you come first. You also have to take care of yourself as an individual, as a business owner.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's very profound. Audrey, thank you so much for giving us all these um, delightful insight and very wise insights. My last question is I wanted to give you an opportunity to let our viewer know if they're interested in Edith at corporate level or on individual level, how they can reach you. And I will also, once I get this, and once I get this on the social media, I will also have a blurb about your contact information. How can they reach you, or what are the 1, 2, 3 steps they need to go through to engage with your services?
Yeah. Well, okay. So for Edith, whether you're an individual or a business, please visit myedith.com. And you can find information there about how to join the program, how to take advantage of everything we offer and the various tiers and all of those wonderful things. If there are any just general questions too, there's also an inquiry form on the website as well. That'll go straight to me. So you can easily get some questions answered that way, find out a little bit more if you'd like. We also have a really fascinating blog on that website too that talks about lots of interesting topics in the world of fashion and mental health and those intersections there. So anything about the business, go to myedith.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I get a lot of DMs and I love responding to them and helping people out too. I'm here for you. If you just want to ask me a simple question, go for it. So yeah, Audrey Rumsby on LinkedIn. I'm the only Audrey Rumsby on the internet, so I'm very easy to find. So yeah, hit me up with a DM there and check out our website.
Thank you again, Audrey, for joining us today. I really appreciate your patience with me and joining our first ever podcast. And I hope to have you back in the future.
Oh, I'd love that. Thank you so much, Mary. I really appreciate it. This was a really nice little conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.